Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're checking out something that I never would have expected would be something that I would say, but Cockroach Pla. It's a cockroach plastic model here, a mecha cockroach from Roblox Animation. The last thing that I think that I built from Roblox Animation was their Bailu kit, which was awesome. So at least I've got high hopes that this one is going to be a really cool kit. But yeah, it's a mecha model kit of a mecha cockroach, so it should be certainly very interesting. Let's get into it here for today's video. And so to be precise, this is the Guangdong Cockroach Cantonese heavy utility vehicles, and as you can see from the box art there, it's made to be like a large mecha unit, and you can see the people kind of there in the foreground, not supposed to be like a tiny little like realistic size cockroach. So I'm not exactly sure what the scale is meant to be on this, but you can see around from some of the images on the box art that it's going to be pretty posable as far as being able to open up the wings, and then there is going to be a luminous core, as they call it, which I guess is going to be an LED unit inside. So pretty cool stuff. Let's go ahead and open this up and check out the contents inside here. We've got what looks like, a very obviously Akira inspired image here for the front of the box art, where you've got this guy walking up to it. Instead of the Akira motorcycle, it's our cockroach mecha there. That's pretty fun. Other than that, on the inside page, it looks like our parts list and other contents. We are going to have some other stuff included, and then all of our construction is going to be here in full color, which is nice. Well, it looks like that's going to go through the construction all the way to the end here. There's going to be, I guess, a marking guide. We are going to have some decals, it looks like, perhaps inside here. Let's see. First of all, in this bag is our small little LED unit there, it looks like, and unless we have batteries in here somewhere, it looks like batteries are not included. Yeah, it doesn't look like batteries are included, but according to the manual for that, it looks like you're going to need 2 of this AG1 size battery there, and that's going to be able to be turned on by a magnet, so that's kind of typical for a lot of LED units we're seeing these days. In this small bag, we've got our G runner, which is just going to be some clear red parts there, and then this little guy here molded in clear, and it's in like a softer plastic, and it almost looks like he's meant to be like a scuba diver or something. Where does this actually go? Okay, so this looks to be like an option part for the top, so you can choose whether you want to have this cannon attached onto the top or this little guy, basically to make it look like the guy is just kind of like hanging on to the cockroach as it's like scurrying along there or something, so that's fun. You do also have in this bag then a long black wire and a long clear wire, and it looks like those are probably just going to be for, you can clip off pieces to use for the antenna for it. And then here's our water slide decals. Actually a lot more water slide decals than I was expecting. So you have these large markings here, some smaller ones in a few different colors. You have some more markings over here, and then some just kind of standard caution markings. Those are going to be in white or gray. So a lot of really nice decals here for this. Kind of surprising. That's cool. You do also have that magnet included for switching on the LEDs. Just a very simple magnet here. And then as for the runners, the A runner we have in both brown and in white. So as you might have seen there on the outside of the box, it shows that you can make this as either just kind of like normal brown colors or in a white color scheme if you want. Otherwise, of course, you can paint it whatever colors you want, but there's some of our parts here on the A runner. It does kind of give you a sense of the size of this. These main shell parts for the back are quite large there, as you can see. Runner B is going to be some gold plated parts here in a nice kind of color of gold, and it does look like some of those parts are going to be undergated and some not, so we'll see how visible some of those nub marks are going to be for these parts. Runner C is also going to be here in dark brown, but different from what we saw on the A runner. If you look at the two side by side, you can see the A runner is like a very pure, like chocolatey brown color, and the C runner is just more of like a dark brownish gray kind of color here. Runner D then is even darker still. That's just being like a plain, like very dark brown gray kind of color here. Runner E, once again, being another shade of brown. So every runner is like a different shade of brown, essentially, aside from the gold runner we saw there as well. But this one is going to be in like a dark chocolate brown color here. And then we've got runner F for clear orange. There's a few bits there in clear orange, including the main parts for the clear orange wings there. And then as we saw a moment ago, runner G is just a couple of little bits there in like a clear red, and that's it. So let's get it built up and check it out here. I'm very curious. All right, guys, and here is the finished product all put together. Now, you may notice that it looks sanded. That's because I did sand this. Everything's all ready to paint, because once I started putting this together, I pretty immediately realized that, like, okay, this is really going to be an easy kit to paint and a fun kit to paint just because it's relatively simple and it's quite unique. Now, one thing I will say is for the antenna here at the front, the hole is not quite the right size, just in that the antennas are quite loose in here. So just to avoid them kind of either spinning around or falling out accidentally, I'm just going to remove those for the time being. But we'll take a look over the kit here and the accessories. So here on the back, you do have the cannon. Now this can move side to side, and that's really kind of about it. It doesn't move up and down or anything else. These parts in here don't move. All the gates, I will say, on the gold parts are fairly well hidden, but as you can see, like here on the underside of those gold parts, you will see a little bit of the nub marks on those plated gold parts. There's not too many of them though. Those I am going to try to strip the gold plating on those before painting. But if we remove the cannon off the back here, you can see what that piece looks like. Now you have two different options here, a larger or a smaller piece. The larger piece extends farther and has that hard point on it on the back. The smaller piece does not have a hard point on it. If you just remove that entirely, you can see a little bit of the clear part inside. That's where the LED unit is. And so if we just put the smaller piece on here, you can actually see more of that inside. And I did go ahead and put the batteries in there, and it's just meant to touch with the magnet to turn that on. There we go. To get that LED on inside there, and then from the outside, the LED actually points up and out this way, so you're going to see it much more on this side than on the underside, but you can see some of that light radiating out on the inside there. I think you could probably turn the LED unit around because it doesn't really matter which direction it's facing, just based on the instructions. It shows it pointing out this way, but you could turn it around the other way. I think that actually probably might look better than just touching that with the magnet again. Should just turn that off there. Yeah, as we saw, then we have this little guy that can also be attached here onto the top. Kind of interesting that they don't have any images of this on like the box art or anything. Interesting that that peg is like way too long. So either have to cut that peg down, or let's see. Yeah, I think probably just a matter of cutting that down a little bit. There we go. Once he's attached onto the top, you can have it so it looks like a little guy is hanging onto the back of our roach there, and then again with the light on, just because that guy is clear. Oh, I guess I have the wrong part there on the top. Well, I guess, yeah, you wouldn't really see the light coming up. So there you go. You can have it looking like there's a little guy hanging onto the back of our roach here. Obviously, it's just in clear, so you would want to paint that, but we also have the opening wings. Now, the wings open, and there's two layers, an inner layer and an outer layer. The wings at the maximum, they kind of go all the way out to the side, even like slightly forward there a little bit, but kind of meant to just be open like so. And a lot of cool detail inside. Now there's actually multiple sections to the body, so the head will move up and down on its own there. It's actually on a ball joint, so you can kind of turn it around to the sides and a little bit there like that. And then this flap here on the top, or this armor section, will move up and down a little bit on its own. This whole front part will move up and down. And then the back part, when you move this down, it actually extends out those thrusters there at the back. Those kind of pop out there like that, which is pretty cool when you bend that part. This little bit here at the very end, it's also on a ball joint, so you can kind of adjust the angle of that. But yeah, a lot of cool detail inside, and then on the underside there as well. Each of the legs is attached via a ball joint, and then you have one hinge in the leg there. So the ball joint, which also has a point of rotation there as well, that you can rotate the leg, and then you can bend the leg sort of at the knee, as it were. The little mono eye sort of that you can see there inside the visor in the head, that can actually be rotated. There's a little sort of like a Phillips head screw looking piece there on the underside. I think we can probably use our clear wing part to rotate that. So you can turn that to the side there, and now you can see the mono eyes sort of, or the camera, whatever, is looking off to the side. So that's kind of cool. And sort of similarly to the mono eye here on the sides of the body, you have these little clear sort of camera bits, I guess, that are just on this ball, which can like move around. Thing is that it moves sort of loosely, and just by manipulating the kit, just handling the kit, you're gonna end up like accidentally moving that around. So if you wanted it to be in like a certain position, you may want to just put some glue on that, and ultimately that's probably what I'll end up doing, but kind of a cool little detail that you can have that. And it's meant to just be sort of just like a side camera array, because remember, this is supposed to not be like an actual like cockroach size little thing, but rather an actual like large sort of tank sort of thing, as it were. So anyway, and yeah, then obviously our clear wings here, these are going to attach. There's like another set that will fold out here on the inside, also on a ball joint, and that's where we're going to plug the clear wing bits into. So these should just slot into here, something like that. And then you can adjust the angle of those too. You can have them more in, out, sort of up and down a little bit. You can adjust the angle of that because it is attached via a ball joint there. But with the wings open and our guy hanging on for dear life on the top, it's going to look something like that. And then of course, yeah, again, you can kind of adjust the legs as you need, adjust the bend of the body, kind of whatever. So it's all adjustable there like that. And there's no system built into it for plugging it onto an action base, as in there's no like built-in hard point. It doesn't seem like there's anything in the manual that I could see where it says like, here's kind of where you're supposed to attach it to a base or something. So you're gonna have to just customize that, I guess. But essentially it would just be a matter of drilling a hole somewhere to attach it either onto an action base, like a Bandai action base, or attach a rod onto there. So, one more thing that I should not forget is that here on the underside, it gets worse. in a way, just because of how disgusting this is, and I hate how disgusting it is. But you have this, what is meant to be sort of like a missile pod doors or something like that, but basically sort of like eggs. Yes, if there's anything worse than cockroaches, it's cockroach eggs. And so you can open that up there on the underside, those couple of doors there. And yeah, that's it. Certainly very unique. And then just, of course, as a reminder, you do have the runner of these parts in white if you did want. So all this kind of like main chocolatey brown color that you see for the shell parts and a couple of other bits here and there, you do have in white if you wanted. Obviously, I just opted for the brown. And then you have your waterslide decals, which I do think I'll probably use some of those. But first thing that I want to do for now is actually, I want to see if I can strip that gold plating on there. So I'm going to dip those parts in some purple power for actually about 48 hours. I'm about to leave for the weekend. I'll come back and see how well that worked. And then if I need to, I'll have to maybe just do a little bit more sanding just to remove some of that gold plating, and then just throw some paint on this guy, some decals, and then we'll see how it's looking. Alright guys, after getting some paint on the kit, here's the final result. This was a really fun kit to paint up. You know, relatively simple kit just in terms of the number of parts. There's not a whole lot of parts, and there's no like seam lines to remove or anything like that. So it was really quick to get prepped, just, you know, a little bit of sanding on there, and the parts were ready to paint. So this kit is great if you're looking for something that can be just kind of a easy, fun, quick, you know, a painted build if you wanted to do something fun with it like this. So as far as the colors go for this, I was kind of in two minds whether I wanted to go so like very different from the original color scheme and make it like super colorful or something like that, but I decided against that just because nothing was really coming to mind that I really liked. And then I had the idea, actually I was kind of reminded, with it just being like a flying mecha bug, kind of reminded me a bit of the ornithopters of Dune, and so that ultimately ended up being the inspiration for the colors, and then obviously the sand aspect that we have there in the base as well. So for the colors, basically it's just a mix of dark browns and kind of dark gray and metallic kind of colors here that we have mostly for the body. That said, for the shell, for the outer shell parts, it did seem like a waste to not use those big wide open spaces on the shell to not make some kind of interesting pattern or something on there. And so as you can see, I just cut a mask and made a mask there to have this kind of orange and blue kind of camo pattern on the back of the shell, on the main shell parts. But otherwise, yeah, for the rest, I got rid of some of the gold parts. Some of the gold parts I kept gold, and some of them I repainted in a little bit different like shade of gold. And most everything else is either, yeah, in a dark brown, dark gray, or dark metallic kind of colors. And then, yeah, I went in, and I wasn't sure if I was really going to do all that much weathering, but I went in and decided to just do some simple weathering on this, some chipping around on it here and there. And then mostly it was just using weathering color for adding the finishing touches, using some of the dark weathering color for basically doing like a wash over it, and then also using a much lighter tan color to give it a lighter wash then kind of on top of that, because of this having like, so I wanted to have a desert weathered kind of look to it, with it having this kind of light sand color wash over the top of it. So anyway, lastly, I did use a little bit of Mr. Hobby weathering paste around, especially like on the legs, on the feet, basically on where the feet would naturally be touching the ground, just to make it look like there's some like kind of sand, mud kind of caked there a little bit on the feet. And then after top coating, I did use a little bit of AK weathering pencils on there, a little bit just to kind of highlight some of the edges around on some of the armor a little bit slightly there with some of those weathering pencils from AK, and that's really kind of about it. And then there's the base. Yeah, and this is my first time ever trying to use basically cotton to make a kind of smoke, or in this case it's just like a sand plume just from like the thrusters of the mech, from the beetle, from the cockroach, basically trying to make it look like it's like coming in for a landing or something like that. With this being my first time trying using cotton for that, I don't think it came out perfectly at all, and I'm looking forward to getting some notes from you guys as to what you would suggest to help to make that look better. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, basically for the base, I just put some sand down on the top of that, and then just use some cotton there to try to make it look like somewhat of like kind of like a dust plume being kind of blown out there. So I don't know how ultimately what you guys think about how it looks. Let me know in the comments. But as far as the main kit anyway, I'm really happy with how that came out. I think it came out looking really good. I think the weathering actually came out pretty nice on that. And as you guys know, I just always feel like I'm just really not very good at weathering, but I think it came out pretty decently on this one, so I'm pretty happy with that. But anyway, guys, as far as the kit goes, it's very unique, very different, very fun. I enjoyed working on this one. It was a pretty quick build, and I'm happy with the results, so it's always fun to have like this type of like fun, simple project that you can knock out in the matter of like a few days, and you could get something really cool out of it. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And again, if you guys want to check out the kit, it's still up for pre-order at the moment. We should be getting it in here at USA Gundam Store pretty soon. You can check out the link down in the video description. You can check out this kit and everything else there on the site, so do that. And then yeah, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, make sure you're subscribed if you're not yet subscribed. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. See you next time. Have a good one. Bye.